Good afternoon. I too would like to thank so many who have embarked upon this journey with us today as we observe the King holiday. My father would have been on Saturday 93 years old. But first, let me thank Speaker Pelosi for her tireless commitment on behalf of black and brown Americans, as well as the Congressional Black Caucus Chair, Congresswoman Beatty, and also Congresswoman Terry Sewell from the state of Alabama, for constantly fighting for that which is right. And I want to thank every partner. Over 180 organizations have joined us, over 1,000 pastors. Every major labor union has joined in this quest for voting rights. But I want to thank every partner who made it today for the Peace Walk and all the organizers of the Peace Walk who understood the importance not just of the day, but of this moment. And thank you to all of you who are joining us here today, and especially you as members of the American media helping to get the word out to American people. My mother always said the holiday should be a day on, not a day off. Today we're not here to celebrate. We're here to be on. We're here to call on President Biden and the Senate to pass the Freedom to Vote John R. Lewis Act and to warn that our democracy stands on the brink of serious trouble without these bills. Last week the president said he's tired of being quiet about voting rights. Well, we're tired of being patient. Since January 6, 2021, when the insurrectionists attacked our Capitol, 19 legislatures have passed 34 laws clawing back voting rights for their citizens. In states like my home state, where new laws, I should say of Georgia, are designed to confuse voters so they don't know where to go. They kick people off the voter rolls so they show up to vote and find out they're not registered. They close polling stations and limit voting hours so working parents and folks without access to transportation can't get there in time. These laws are being passed with knife-like precision to cut black and brown voters out of the process. And they're exactly what the Voting Rights Act once protected against. That's just one state, but it's all over. Texas, Florida, Iowa, Arizona, the list goes on. More legislatures are gearing up to pass laws like these when they convene this year. And our Senate is letting them get away with it because of a little technicality called the filibuster. With the filibuster, a single senator can prevent a bill from coming up for debate just by sending an email. They can stop a bill from being debated, let alone voted on. This is why people say the Senate is broken, but it gets worse. The filibuster was used to stop civil rights legislation for 100 years after the Civil War. Now think about that. The history books tell you that after the Civil War, people who had been enslaved for 250 years were finally free. But that's not the truth. They had to fight for 100 more years before they could overcome the filibuster just to have their right to vote protected. And now the filibuster is being weaponized again. The irony is that all these laws taking away our rights are being passed by a simple majority, while here in Washington, the effort to reinstate them has to get a super majority to pass. The good news is that we have the power to address the injustices. We can eliminate the filibuster with a simple majority and then pass this bill that every Democratic senator says they support. But as you've heard, a few people stand in the way. Not just Republicans, every one of them is taking an immoral position against voting rights. But that's not who I want to talk about today. I'm talking about two Democratic senators, Senator Joe Manchin and Senator Sinema, who say they support the bill, but refuse to eliminate the filibuster to pass it. They think the real problem isn't that our rights are being stolen. They think the real problem is a disease of division that can be cured with some optimism and conversation. Now, my father worked to bring people together in his time, but he was no Pollyanna. In his speech, The Other America, he talked about how some people were pushing back on civil rights because, like these two senators, they felt the problem couldn't be solved with legislation. They told him he had to change hearts first, and he worked hard at that. After all, he was a Baptist preacher. But he knew that when someone is denying you of your fundamental rights, conversation and optimism won't get you very far. He said, although it may be true that morality can't be legislated, behavior can be regulated. Even though it might be true, he said, that the law cannot change the heart, it can restrain the heartless. Even though it may be true that the law cannot make a man love me, it can restrain him from lynching me. So let me be clear. When states are engaging in lawless voter suppression, only the law can stop them. Senators Sinema and Manchin also say if the bill doesn't get bipartisan support, it shouldn't pass. Well, the 14th Amendment, which granted citizenships to slaves in 1868, that didn't have bipartisan support. Should formerly enslaved people have been denied citizenship, Senator Sinema? The 15th Amendment that gave formerly enslaved people the right to vote in 1870, that didn't have bipartisan support. Should former slaves have been denied the right to vote, Senator Manchin? In 1922, 23, and 24, some senators filibustered an anti-lynching bill that had passed in the House. Would Senator Manchin and Senator Sinema have supported blocking those bills too? I'm just applying their logic here and showing that it's not logical at all. To them, the filibuster is sacred, except for when it's not. In 2010, Senator Sinema supported the idea of using reconciliation to get around the filibuster and pass health care reform. Just last month, they both supported an exception to the filibuster to raise the debt ceiling. But they draw the line at protecting the rights of millions of voters. History will not remember them kindly. In April 1963, my father was jailed in Birmingham for protesting segregation. While there, he wrote an open letter in which he said the biggest stumbling block was not the Ku Klux Klan, but the white moderate, who is more devoted to order than justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I can't agree with your methods or direct action, who paternalistically feels he can set the timetable for another man's freedom. He was surrounded by people who told him to wait until a more convenient time and to use more agreeable methods. 59 years later, it's the same old song and dance from Senator Manchin and Sinema. But my father did not let up for a moment, and neither have we. More than 180 partners, over 1,000 faith leaders, and millions nationwide fought to make this vote possible. You're the reason President Biden spoke out last week and is swinging for the fences. You're the reason Speaker Pelosi has brought about powerful legislation and every procedural solution possible to protect black and brown Americans. You are the reason Leader Schumer set a deadline and is bringing the bill to a vote tomorrow. Organizing works, protesting works, and we cannot let up now. So no matter what happens tomorrow, we must keep the pressure on and say no more empty words. Don't tell us what you believe in. Show us with your votes. History will be watching what happens tomorrow. Black and brown Americans will be watching what happens tomorrow. In 50 years, students will read about what happens tomorrow and know whether our leaders had the integrity to do the right thing. Mr. President, Senators Manchin, Senator Sinema, members of the Senate, pass the Freedom to Vote John R. Lewis Act now. If you can deliver an infrastructure bill for bridges, you can deliver voting rights for Americans. If you do not, there is no bridge in this nation that can hold the weight of that failure. Thank you. And now I have the great honor of introducing the leaders who believed in this fight from the beginning and who have stood by the side of black and brown Americans on voting rights. Speaker Pelosi has used her position of leadership to push from every angle to get voting rights bills passed, and we would not be where we are today without her commitment to our democracy. Representative Joyce Beatty, the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, has been instrumental in passing voting rights legislation in the House and getting us to this point in the fight. Representative Terry Sewell has been a pillar in the voting rights fight and leading the House to deliver for voting rights just like they delivered for bridges. Because of the leadership of these women, the House passed this crucial legislation to protect our democracy, and action now rests with the Senate. First, please join me in welcoming the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, the Honorable Nancy Pelosi.